How's it going, everybody? Welcome to week 8. We're halfway through the semester here. Um, yeah, kind of moving right along. A couple of things before we get into the sort of content here. One, epic essays. Thanks for submitting your drafts. Um, I'm going to give you some feedback on them. Sorry, I've been a little backlogged on some other things. I'm getting caught up on. I will give you some feedback on there. I started them. Long story short, I'll finish them tomorrow. I apologize about that, but I will give you some feedback on those. So thanks for getting those. Glad everyone's on their way. The draft, ideas on paper. That's the main point of that. Then the other point I wanted to make, also in the student resources, is we are halfway through the semester, so this is sort of a good time to reflect, and I'd like to do that through the CAL framework. You'll see if you open that up in the student resources. There's 3 questions on the top. Maybe just spend in my in-person class. I have them spend like 3 minutes just kind of answering these questions, right? Because the CAL framework, it's the community college is really kind of trying to pivot our way we look at education or classes. Is not just credits to get done to move on, but how can this time at Hawaii Community College be a chapter, CAL means story, in the story of your life. So here I think it's a good time to sort of reflect. The hua, right? The C, that's question number 1. Kind of reflect back. Go back 8 weeks in the past, right? Is that hua? Is that motivation for coming to school? Is it the same? If so, great. Like, are you roll with it? Maybe it's changed or been modified a little bit. But kind of be thinking, a good time to kind of reflect on that. But we've started. Lele, we've departed. We're in the huaka'i, the traveling point now of everything. So, how's these 8 weeks been? Right? Has it been smooth sailing? No problems. A little turbulent here and there. Kind of reassess that. But in that reassessment, and this is question number 2, what have you accomplished? Right? And it could be in this class. It could be in school, in any of your classes, or it could be completely outside of school. But just think of one thing. What is one thing you've accomplished thus far? And it's always good when you're reflecting. Don't just like dwell on like, oh, here's all the things I should have done. Think of something that you have done, that you have accomplished, right? And put that in your win box. And then the third one to reflect on is, what can you do now to succeed? Now that we're halfway there, we're Ho'oina's on the horizon, the arrival. We're going to end this thing. What do you need to do to get through that, to step through that? So be thinking about that as well. And again, 3 minutes writing. Just set your timer for 3 minutes. Write through those and just use that as a point of reflection. So yeah, that's the 2 kind of announcements. Epic essay drafts. I'll get back to you soon. CAL framework. And then this week, all right, we're kind of finishing up the sort of epic and empire section of the course with Mediterranean. So we've gone South Asia, East Asia, sort of Middle East with Persia, and now we're in Mediterranean world, Greece and Rome. So I think some people are probably a little more familiar maybe with some of the terms of Greece. If I say something like Socrates or Plato or Alexander the Great, some of these names probably resonate with you. So I kind of talked about the history of that, where Greece came from, the Mycenaeans, the Minoan civilizations that sort of collapsed, but out of that came Greece. They shared a religion, they shared a culture, they shared a language, though they weren't they were all these sort of individual poli, cities. They gave them a little bit of flexibility. They weren't all ruled by one group. So each were had developed its own sort of uniqueness, but we're united as Greek. And so we talked about that. The epics is something that united them. I talked about the epics of the Iliad and the Odyssey and Homer. There's a little lecture on that you can look at. Kind of, these ideas that were Greek were very much part of these stories, characters, figures, Achilles, Odysseus, all these different people played roles there. And then we talked about the Persian Wars have brought unity within Greece, and then the Peloponnesian Wars, sort of this turbulent time. In between those 2 wars, that's really sort of the golden age where Athens was flourishing. It's the head of this Delian League. A lot of the names and ideas we associate with Greece: Pericles, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, a lot of the Sophocles, a lot of the playwrights, were all within this sort of period of this golden age of Greece there. And then after that, this new age comes up with Alexander the Great, where Greece really expands out, spreads sort of Greek culture called Hellenism into Persia, right? The Persians had invaded Greece during the Persian Wars. Greece, knew that was historical memory. They then invaded Persia. and basically just plucked out the Persian administrators, put in Greek administrators, and set up this large Greek kingdom, which over time would, as we know now, empires rise and fall. And this new empire, this small little city of Rome, expanded, controlled Italy, took over Carthage, and then built an empire within the Mediterranean, unifying all of it under this Pax Romana. The lecture talks about that. Some main characters with there, Julius Caesar, Augustus, and some of the underpinnings of what made Rome, this Pax Romana, this period of Roman peace throughout much of the Mediterranean. The last little part there is Christianity. So, this idea of Christianity, that Jesus came, it was the crucible of sort of this Roman world, particularly in Judea. Judea had just become a section of the Roman Empire. There was a lot of tensions there, a lot of people looking at different things. One of these people who emerge in this period is Jesus, preaching a new kingdom, a new idea, right? And if you look at I've talked about this in the lecture too. If you look at his life, right, he was born in Bethlehem, but he's there because the Romans have called the census, right? And then there's this idea of Herod, right? And in the Bible, right, in the Gospels, right, Herod kills all newborns. There is a historical Herod, who was the governor of this Judea province. We have no records of him an edict of killing all newborns. In fact, from the Roman side, we don't really have any records of Jesus at all. He just one of many Roman groups. And even from the Jewish histories, there's a couple mentions of a prophet, somebody who was preaching some new ideas, but there's no real that people associated with Jesus. But all we really have is the Gospels of the four Gospels of Jesus' life. But we see sort of the mechanics of the Roman Empire there, the census, Herod, and then later on, under when Jesus gets arrested, right, he's brought before this council of Jewish elders, right, and he's said that he's disrupting society, right, he's causing problems, and then so he's sort of causing issues within the Jewish community. From the Roman side, they're like, hey, that's just Pontius Pilate. He's sort of the judge, the Roman judge. He says, yes, we don't want any. If this is going to disrupt society, we'll do what you want in order to keep Roman authority functioning. And that's so you see a lot of the mechanics of empire in the story of Jesus. So and then the disciples of Jesus were able to spread very quickly throughout the Mediterranean through the transportation networks created by the Roman Empire. So a lot going on there. And over the last 3 weeks, we've covered a lot of terms and ideas. So this week we have a quiz 2. Look at the review guide. There's review terms there. Take a look at them. There's quite a few, so be familiar with those. Quiz 2 will be available to take from Friday at 8 a.m. till 11:55 p.m. There's no writing on this one, no 5 W's, just terms. And then you also have assigned review terms that you need to complete by 11:55 p.m. as well. So I think that's it. If you have any questions between now and then, please let me know. Have a good rest of your day and rest of your week.